At the Simcoe County stop of the Policing Free Schools provincial camping tour, organizers, parents, and community leaders gathered to oppose Bill 33, the Supporting Children and Student Act. The press conference was co-hosted by Policing Free Schools, UPlift Black, and Parents Against Racism Simcoe County. Andrea Vásquez Jiménez, Director and Principal Consultant, Policing Free Schools, told Simcoe Community Media that Policing Free Schools is working to build healing, equitable, and police-free education spaces rooted in public investment, not punishment.
Bill 33 is a proposed wide-sweeping legislation, so it does amendments to multiple acts. But when we're speaking to particularly the changes that it is doing to the Education Act, particularly at the K-12 school board level, what it is looking to do, it's fundamentally a power grab. It's making it easier to take over school boards, really moving towards the elimination of democratically elected school board trustees. And another segment of it, it is looking at mandating policing in schools, including but not limited to police in school programs. And we know what that will reproduce, and that is the harms of the entrenchment of the school-prison nexus provincially. And ultimately, Bill 33 also will be silencing young people, students themselves, parents, caregivers, guardians, and school communities, and removal of local community democratic power.
During the press conference, founder and president of UPlift Black, Shelly-Ann Skinner said local communities must retain the power to decide what's best for their children.
Bill 33 is a thinly veiled attempt to centralize power, dismantle the essential role of local school boards, trustees, and push our schools towards privatization. And this is not governance. This is an attempt to silence the local voice and strip away the accountability we fought for. Here in Simcoe County, our local boards have already demonstrated their ability to listen to the community. They made the necessary decision to halt police-led programs, and Bill 33 is a direct threat to that victory, as Andrea said. It is designed to mandate the expansion of policing in schools and overriding our local choice. But democracy is not for sale. We choose local power, we choose accountability, we choose the voices of parents and the community members over external control. And our mandate is clear: no to the power grab, and yes to properly funded, robust, and democratically governed public education system.
Director of Operations of Parents Against Racism Simcoe County, Sarah Peart, argued that the bill ignores evidence of harm and silences parent voices across Ontario.
We're calling on this government to fund our schools and fund our communities. Bill 33 represents a serious step backward. It opens the door for increased police presence in schools, despite the overwhelming evidence, including the Ontario Human Rights Commission Dreams Delayed report, that Black and racialized students already face disproportionate discipline, surveillance, and harm in these spaces.
Parent and activist Michael Spears said public funds must go to education and community care, not surveillance.
The fight for police-free schools is part of a broader movement to rethink how we spend public money and what we value as a society. The same logic that says we shouldn't have police in classrooms applies to our communities as a whole. We can't claim to care about safety while continually inflating police budgets at the expense of housing, healthcare, education, and others. Real safety doesn't come from more officers or surveillance. It comes from strong, well-resourced communities where people have what they need to live with dignity. Reducing police budgets isn't about taking away safety. It's about finally funding the things that make safety possible.
Following are our interviews and coverage of the press conference.
And at Policing Free Schools Canada, we are committed to catalyzing systemic changes and a paradigm shift, moving towards the co-creation of transformative, healthy, equitable, life-affirming, liberatory, healing-centered, policing-free educational spaces, and that is inclusive of a strong public education system. Moving away from non-evidence-based, harmful measures, including policing and carceral measures, which is also including policing in schools, whether policing school programs or otherwise. Bill 33 is a proposed wide sweeping legislation, so it does amendments to multiple acts. But when we're speaking to particularly the changes that it is doing to the Education Act, particularly at the K-12 school board level, what it is looking to do, it's fundamentally a power grab. It's making it easier to take over school boards, really moving towards the elimination of democratically elected school board trustees. And another segment of it, it is looking at mandating policing in schools, including but not limited to police in school programs. And we know what that will reproduce, and that is the harms of the entrenchment of the school-prison nexus provincially. And ultimately, Bill 33 also will be silencing young people, students themselves, parents, caregivers, guardians, and school communities, and removal of local community democratic power. It was introduced recently in May. It is currently right now in the second reading. However, since the provincial legislature is on recess, they come back on October the 20th, which is a Monday. That's the first day that the legislature resumes. Policing Free Schools, alongside multiple supporters through the provincial campaign for a Policing Free Schools Ontario, is holding a province-wide rally and teach-in at Queen's Park starting 10 a.m. on Monday, October 20th. And that is going to be the culmination of our 10 local campaign stops. And so currently right now, Simcoe County is the 6th campaign stop. We have 4 more to go. And then after that, there are multiple calls to action that folks are able to get involved on our website, policingfreeschools.ca. Folks are able to click on the Ontario Take Action tab. And also folks are able to connect with us directly, email us directly if there are multiple other ways that folks are looking to get involved, whether it be supporting the provincial campaign at a provincial level or organizing locally with our community-based partners across the province.
Good morning, and thank you for joining us at our Policing Free Schools Provincial Campaign Tour Press Conference. Simcoe County Campaign Stop, No to Bill 33, and Fund Our Schools, Not Policing in Schools. Before moving forward, I would like to acknowledge that we are on stolen Indigenous land across Turtle Island, and recognize that these lands have been and continue to be inhabited by many nations of Indigenous peoples since time immemorial. And the land that we are meeting on today, specifically colonially known as Simcoe County, is the traditional territory of the Anishinaabeg Nation, which includes the Ojibwe, Ottawa, Potawatomi nations, collectively known as the Three Fires Confederacy. Also recognizing the Huron-Wendat, whose presence has been on these lands prior to the middle of the 17th century. Acknowledging those as well who came here involuntarily, particularly as a result of the transatlantic enslavement trade. And so we honor and pay tribute to ancestors of African origin and descent. With this stated, it is necessary to move beyond acknowledgements. This isn't just a checkbox to be marked off. It is Black, Indigenous, Black Afro-Indigenous that are most negatively impacted across Ontario, across Canada, and globally by policing, carceral logics, practices, and policies and systems. And they continue to be systematically harmed and denied their humanity. Currently, there are multiple bills across the country, including right here in Ontario, that are undermining Indigenous rights, Indigenous self-determination, and self-governance, such as Bill 5. Immediate calls to action follow 8th Fire Rising. They are an Indigenous-led coalition of concerned and impacted communities working to build a broad-based movement with labor and land defenders. They aim to fight back against recent legislative infringements on Indigenous jurisdiction, violations of workers' rights, and the corporate pillage of lands and waters across these lands. You can follow them on Instagram and check out their website, 8firerising.ca, where you can learn more about Bill 5 and others. As well, follow Akinawak on Instagram. They are a youth-led movement uniting First Nations across so-called Canada and taking action, including right here in Ontario. learn ways to get involved and be in solidarity with Indigenous peoples. Both also have ongoing actions that folks can partake in and support. It is our individual and collective responsibility to do so. And thank you for today joining us at the Policing Free Schools Provincial Campaign Tour Press Conference for Simcoe County. No to Bill 33 and fund our schools, not policing in schools. My name is Andrea Vásquez Jiménez, gender pronoun she, her, ella, Director and Principal Consultant of Policing Free Schools. At Policing Free Schools Canada, we are dedicated to catalyzing systemic changes and a paradigm shift, moving towards the co-creation of transformative, healthy, equitable, life-affirming, liberatory, healing-centered, policing-free educational spaces. Policing Free Schools convenes the National Campaign for a Policing Free Schools Canada, as well as the Provincial Campaign for a Policing Free Schools Ontario. We work on these systemic issues alongside and in solidarity with our national partners across so-called Canada, and also international partners across the US, the United Kingdom, and South Africa, as the issue of policing in schools, including police in school programs, the school-prison nexus, and the carceral continuum, is a systemic issue and crosses colonial borders. The Provincial Campaign for a Policing Free Schools Ontario is a coalition network of Ontario-based partners, individuals, organizers, and organizations. And today, our 6th stop for our provincial campaign trial is right here in Simcoe County. Policing Free Schools and our local-based partners, UPlift Black and Parents Against Racism Simcoe County, are co-hosting today's press conference. And alongside local supporters, we are here to send a clear message from across the province to the Ford government and the Education Minister, Paul Calandra, and unequivocally, collectively say no to Bill 33, no to power grabs, no to taking over school boards, no to the elimination of democratically elected school board trustees, no to privatization, no to policing in schools, and yes to properly funded, supported, resourced public education. We are demanding fund our schools, fund our communities. And although today's press conference focuses on the amendments to the Education Act, specifically on kindergarten to grade 12 school boards, we are also here to uplift and amplify the demands of our Policing Free Schools post-secondary Ontario-based partners, the Canadian Federation Students of Ontario, who oppose Bill 33. And their demands are as follows: reject Bill 33 and seize unnecessary government oversight, defend and legislate students' rights to organize and safeguard the autonomy of campuses, and provide immediate and dedicated public funding into a post-secondary education system. For today's press conference, we will be hearing from multiple local-based speakers, including Shelly-Ann Skinner, founder and president of UPlift Black, Sarah Peart, director of operations from Parents Against Racism, Simcoe County, and Michael Spears, a parent and community organizer. After we hear from the speakers, we will then be open for a Q&A period, and the press conference will then come to a close. The total time of the press conference will be maximum 1 hour or less. When the press conference does come to a close, community members who have joined us are encouraged to come by our Policing Free Schools learning booth. You'll be able to learn ways on how to get involved, multiple calls to action. There are also 2 paper petitions that have already previously been tabled at the legislature last year by the former Ontario New Democratic Party, Jill Andrew, and will be retabled with new signatures by the Ontario New Democratic Party, Christine Wong Tam, once the legislature resumes. And again, there are multiple calls to action on our website, policingfreeschools.ca. And before leaving, please pick up a Know Your Rights resource created by our national campaign partner, the British Columbia Civil Liberties Association. They do have a national mandate, so it is a national resource. And also, of course, grab a community donation, Lush gift set, as there is a limited supply. So prior to hearing from our local-based speakers, I will be anchoring us today with an overview of Bill 33 and the current provincial landscape and weaving into the recent local context. Bill 33, titled Supporting Children and Students Act. This proposed sweeping legislation, contrary to its name, has nothing to do with supporting students. Instead, Bill 33 is a distraction from the real issue, a chronically underfunded public education system by the Ford conservative government, which in 2018, at that time, was already an underfunded public education system under the Liberals due to the per student funding formula rather than a needs-based funding formula that so many have been advocating for. And now with the Ford conservative government continuously choosing to make it worse, chronically underfunding by $6.35 billion since 2018, as reported by the Canadian Centre for Policy Alternatives. This too is a distraction from the government's multiple scandals, including the government's waste of taxpayer dollars in the billions of dollars, and ultimately their decimation of our public systems and public common goods, including the deterioration of our community-based supports. Bill 33 has everything to do with a power grab, seeking to further centralize provincial government power, this time with the intent to making it easier to take over school boards in pursuit of ending the role of democratically elected school board trustees and towards decimating our public education system, moving towards privatization under the guise of school choice, placing profit over students, and towards dismantling school boards as we know it. Bill 33 has everything to do with concentrating and increasing police power through legislating police decision-making authority over school boards, including democratically elected school officials. It ultimately standardizes policing as a normalized fundamental feature in schooling spaces through mandating policing in schools across the province. Bill 33 expands policing in schools through tiered and layered policing, regardless of where one is situated in the province. This gross negligence and human rights violation will ultimately exacerbate the harms of school-based policing and entrench the school-prison nexus provincially. Bill 33 is a carceral education policy. Bill 33 is about carceral cultural control, and it is about further funneling money into policing and carceral measures and taking money away from education and the well-being of students, educators, and school communities. Ultimately, Bill 33 is an attack on public education across the province, an attack on democracy, and with it, an attempt to systematically silence all students, parents, caregivers, guardians, and communities across the province. Bill 33 is the means to the end of having any type of accountability, hiding away from public scrutiny to expedite what they already have planned to do, and indeed what has already been underway. Chronically underfund, defund, distract, dismantle, privatize, and profit. No matter how many children, students, families, and school communities get hurt. The Doug Ford government has already made their choice. They choose to wastefully pour millions of tax dollars into non-evidence-based and fiscally irresponsible and harmful measures of policing in schools through the Ministry of the Solicitor General, through their Community Safety and Policing Grant, and has already been plummeting millions of dollars into technological surveillance in schooling spaces through the Ministry of Education. Students' learning conditions are workers' working conditions. And rather than addressing the root causes, addressing the root causes, including the systemic chronic underfunding of education, alongside addressing social and structural determinants of health and equity, which includes a strong public education system, the Ford government chooses to siphon funds out of our schools and communities. The government knows that they cannot police their way into school safety, or student academic achievement. As for the relationship building narrative that keeps continuously being parroted, including by the education minister and the ministry spokesperson, the press secretary for Ontario's Minister of Education, continuously saying that police and school programs, and I quote, help foster positive relationships between students and law enforcement, ultimately making Ontario schools safer, end quote. This is disinformation. They are spewing disinformation. The narrative that they weaponize is intellectually disingenuous and a misleading, harmful narrative that has already been debunked, including by Ontario-based Gita Madan and the University of Alberta Faculty of Education, Professor Alexander Da Costa. Bill 33 is not a surprise to us. It was indeed solely a matter of time, as this bill is in alignment with Ford's ongoing track record and fixation on colonial carceral control, anchored by punishment, harm, and waste of tax dollars. We still, to this date, see the continuation of this. On the heels of Bill 33, the Government of Ontario launched a province-wide initiative in collaboration with multiple policing associations, launching a coordinated Answer the Call PR marketing campaign to increase policing across the province, and the education minister sees schooling spaces as a recruitment ground, along with the recent announcement of the expansion of police training sites. Meanwhile, the Ford government has already announced almost $200 million into increasing jail beds, while already working to significantly expand Ontario's jailing capacity through several infrastructure projects towards an Ontario prison expansion. Equitable access to education is a human right, and policing, including police in school programs, impedes this access. It is overdue for the Ford government and the Minister of Education to face the facts and truly support students through properly funding and resourcing schools, not policing in schools. We know the impact of policing in schools, as the research is clear. When it comes to the systemic issue of policing in schools, along with people's lived and living experiences, policing does not make educational spaces safer. Policing does not prevent or reduce the manufactured crisis of violence in educational spaces. Policing has harmful impacts on students, including on student achievement, educational outcomes, and student well-being. In the fall of 2022, following local-based advocacy right here in Simcoe County, Simcoe County District School Board and Simcoe Muskoka Catholic District School Board ended their police and school programs, including police-led programming. I want to be clear that right here locally, this was and continues to be a community-led win. Simcoe County boards didn't just end the popularly known police and school programs, such as the SRO program. It ended the multiple additional police-led programming. This was education programming led by police, which was duplicating parts of the education curriculum, such as the health curriculum from the Ministry of Education. Curriculum lessons that should be rightfully covered by educators and other forms of programming that can be and should be led by school community partners, not police. In 2024, there were major concerns as it had come to our attention that City Council elected officials from across the Simcoe County region had been seeking to have police and school programs reinstated without actually themselves, as municipal elected officials, understanding the systemic issue of policing in schools. And the Simcoe County-based police now is pushing for reformist reforms. For instance, it was reported in the Simcoe.com this past May that the Collingwood OPP Detachment Board, through Claire Tucker Reid, referring to police and school programs, made mention of hoping, and I quote, "New approach will be revitalized, one that has, quote unquote, standardized training and protocols." The reality is that one cannot reform policing in schools, including police and school programs and police-led programming, out of its systemic harms. And we've already seen what happens across the country when reforms, revisions, reimagining, transforming, strengthening, evolving, updating, new approach to police and school programs takes place. When rebranding happens, when renaming happens, when changing the composition of police and school programs happens, such as diversifying officers or more training as a means to have access to schools and students. And that is that the harms remain intact. Harms are replicated and perpetuated as this is a systemic issue. And it is not possible to reform one's way out of these harms regardless of intent. It is fundamentally a no to all forms of policing and school programs and police-led programming, regardless of the names that they go by, which there are dozens of names and even more across the country, whether it be in Simcoe County or anywhere across the province and elsewhere. And meanwhile, police budgets across the province continue to balloon, including under the rationale for the need to maintain and or expand policing in schools. Funding is siphoned out of what actually would co-create thriving and healthy communities, including schools which in and of themselves are safe. And so we say, fund our schools, fund our communities, not policing in schools. Our first local-based speaker is Shelly-Ann Skinner. Gender pronouns they, she, is the visionary founder and president of UPlift Black, an organization they launched during the 2020 Black Lives Matter movement in Canada. Leveraging their expertise in business coaching and organizational development, Shelly-Ann has dedicated their life to fostering community growth and supporting marginalized voices. Shelly-Ann?
Thanks, everyone. Good morning. So thank you to Andrea and all the organizers of Policing Free Schools for choosing to stop in Simcoe County on your tour. We really need you here, so thank you. So like I said, once I'm Shelly-Ann Skinner, president and founder of UPlift Black. And I stand with Policing Free Schools, Parents Against Racism, Simcoe County, and organizations across the province to say that we are not here to plead. We are here to declare, and we are here to affirm that the power to shape our children's future rests with us, the people who are on the ground. Our message is one of vision and demand. We reject Bill 33, and we demand that we fund our schools and we can fund our communities. So we are facing a coordinated attack on the very structure of our public education, but we will not be intimidated. Bill 33 is a thinly veiled attempt to centralize power, dismantle the essential role of local school boards, trustees, and push our schools towards privatization. And this is not governance. This is an attempt to silence the local voice and strip away the accountability we fought for. Here in Simcoe County, our local boards have already demonstrated their ability to listen to the community. They made the necessary decision to halt police-led programs. and Bill 33 is a direct threat to that victory, as Andrea said. It is designed to mandate the expansion of policing in schools and overriding our local choice. But democracy is not for sale. We choose local power, we choose accountability, we choose the voices of parents and the community members over external control. And our mandate is clear: no to the power grab, and yes to properly funded, robust, and democratically governed public education system. We are demanding an immediate divestment from policing in schools and to end the mandating and expansion of any police presence. No matter how they disguise it, policing in school programs must continue to stay out of Simcoe County schools. We stand here to ensure our local decision is protected. For Black, Indigenous, and racialized children, this push for policing is a mechanism that funnels them directly into the carceral continuum. And that's what Andrea said as well. It's true. And when the system fails our youth, who steps up? It is the grassroots fire that lights the way. The tireless dedication of Parents Against Racism Simcoe County, parents of Black children, Making Change, Be the Change, Black Fathers Alliance, organizations like UPlift Black. These organizations are our heroes, left to mend the wounds that these systems inflict. We see the landscape changing, the rise of xenophobia against newcomer students, the coordinated attacks on sexual orientation, gender identity and expression education, and the effort to reduce vital DEI programs. All acts that make schools more dangerous for youth impacted by discrimination based on race, ethnicity, sexual orientation, and gender. Our vision is one of sanctuaries, not surveillance. We are building schools that affirm, empower, and uplift every student. At UPlift Black, we don't just talk about change, we build it. Our Center for Social Justice and Inclusion proves what happens when you fully invest in community, creativity, and self-determination. We demand that the government follow our lead and reallocate and reinvest those policing dollars into resources that build human potential, like mental health specialists who heal, like educational assistants who actually support, like culturally competent staff and anti-racist program that validates every student's identity. This is a moral fight, and we have the collective power to reject a system that criminalizes our youth and embrace a future that nourishes their brilliance. We are not asking for permission. We are asserting again our right to a fully funded, compassionate, and equitable future for all of our children. So let the message from Simcoe County ring out across the province. We see that there are 5 organizations out of the 11 Black-led organizations across Simcoe County that are here today. We are standing united. We are strong, and we are demanding what is right to fund our schools and to fund our communities. This morning it hasn't been easy. I woke up to a message that I received from a student in a school in Midland who told me, a white student, who told me that there has been so much racism in the schools, especially around Black students, that her and other students want to do something. They want to have the power to do something. Bill 33 will take away that power. We need to make sure that those voices, the people who can make a difference, who are living the experience, have a right to stand up and fight for what's right. We need to make sure that our community organizations are funded and supported so we can continue to do this work, and we cannot continue to do it when those in government want to take away our local power and our local voice. So I highly, highly, highly encourage you to do more research, to keep standing up, and to support us on this movement to end Bill 33. Thank you.
Fund our schools, fund our communities, not policing in schools. Our next local speaker is Sarah Peart, gender pronoun she, her. Is the Director of Operations at Parents Against Racism, Simcoe County, serving since the organization's inception. A mother of 5, she combines professional leadership with insights gained through her children's lived experiences to advance equity in education, guide organizational strategy, and strengthen community capacity in addressing systemic racism. Sarah?
Thank you so much. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Sarah Peart, and I'm here on behalf of Parents Against Racism Simcoe County. There is a lot happening right now with the Education Act and the future of the public education in Ontario. But let's be clear, this isn't just about governance. It's about safety, equity, a sense of belonging, and the well-being of our children, especially the Black and racialized youth. So today we're sending a unified message. No to power grabs. No to taking over school boards in mass forum. No to eliminating trustees. No to privatization. And yes to properly funded, supported, and resourced public education. We're calling on this government to fund our schools and fund our communities. Bill 33 represents a serious step backward. It opens the door for increased police presence in schools, despite the overwhelming evidence, including the Ontario Human Rights Commission Dreams Delayed report, that Black and racialized students already face disproportionate discipline, surveillance, and harm in these spaces. The report calls for a trauma-informed, community-led solutions, not policing models that have failed our children in the past and have not been successful in building a stronger next generation. We've already seen Toronto Police take a strong stance, announcing that they will not return to schools, even if and when Bill 33 takes effect. We expect and hope our local police are going to do the same. At PARSC, we want to be very clear. There are moments when police are needed to protect and support our children. However, the policing system itself needs to complete the internal work of dismantling its own systemic barriers before attempting to increase its presence within our schools and with our children. Until policing becomes rooted in equity, accountability, and community trust, its presence in schools remains a source of fear and harm to far too many. We must fix the system first. Remove the barriers and biases that continue to harm so many communities before inviting police back into these spaces where children should feel safe, seen, supported. Not to mention our own Facts for Impacts survey that was done in 2022 that focused on the educational experiences of students here in Simcoe County. And our very own students spoke loud and clear about feeling a lack of safety when police are in schools. Minister Calandra was quoted just yesterday that school boards should be focused on creating safe learning environments for all students, never at the expense of one community over another, end quote. Yet this bill does exactly that. If there's to be real commitment to those words, Minister Calandra, we need you to come to our community and talk with us, not about us, and not about our children. We've requested meetings from the minister twice, and with previous ministers more than 20 times, and have never received a single response. That is not how you make informed decisions about what's best for our children. Parents Against Racism Simcoe County has supported over 250 families in just 3.5 years. Our families are struggling and we need real support, not silence, and not policies that make things worse for them. So we stand with educators, trustees, and community partners across Ontario calling for full funding of public education, genuine consultation with families, and an end to policies that silence and endanger our youth. Together, we can build strong and safe, inclusive schools that truly support every children. And Minister Calandra will be expecting to hear from you.
Fund our schools, fund our communities, not policing in schools. And fundamentally, again, we cannot reform our way out of the systemic harms of policing in schools, regardless of name and composition. Up next, local-based speaker Michael Spears, gender pronouns he, him, is a husband and father of 3. an activist and spokesperson for change in his community, and a proponent of divesting from policing and investing those funds in our communities. Michael?
Thank you. I want to begin by saying how humbling it is to be here today. I'm honored to share this space with these amazing people whose participation shows just how critical this issue is to students and community safety. Students deserve schools rooted in care, not control, in belonging, not surveillance. For years, communities, families, and educators have been clear. What makes schools safe are relationships, resources, and real support, not policing. Yet the Ford government seems addicted to pouring public funds into programs that cause harm and ignore what students have been asking for all along. While classrooms grow overcrowded, supports shrink, mental health services are out of reach, special education staff are stretched thin, and educators are left to fill impossible gaps. Instead of investing in what actually helps young people learn and thrive, this government insists on measures that are not evidence-based, not rooted in care, and not what our children need. The impact of these decisions is not abstract. When policing expands, harm expands. For all students, and especially for Black, Indigenous, Afro-Indigenous, racialized, special needs, disabled, neurodivergent, queer, and trans youth. These students face disproportionate surveillance and punishment when what they need are understanding, community, and opportunity. We need to be clear. Every dollar spent on policing and education is a dollar taken away from what actually builds safety and well-being. When governments choose to invest in policing instead of supports, they're choosing to manage harm instead of preventing it. We need to divest from systems that criminalize young people and reinvest in systems that care for them. Community programs, youth leaderships, peer mediation, mental health supports, and restorative approaches that keep students in school, not push them out. The fight for police-free schools is part of a broader movement to rethink how we spend public money and what we value as a society. The same logic that says we shouldn't have police in classrooms applies to our communities as a whole. We can't claim to care about safety while continually inflating police budgets at the expense of housing, healthcare, education, and others. Real safety doesn't come from more officers or surveillance. It comes from strong, well-resourced communities where people have what they need to live with dignity. Reducing police budgets isn't about taking away safety. It's about finally funding the things that make safety possible. It comes down to this. Investing in community, including our schools, of course, is not just an alternative, it's the solution. We have decades of research, lived experience, and local leadership showing that when people have access to food security, housing, healthcare, mentorship, and culturally grounded supports, violence and harm decrease. When students have adults who listen and systems that trust them, they thrive. Those are the real foundations of safety on our streets and in school hallways. Not more police, but more care. At the same time, the elimination of school board trustees silences the very people who know our schools best, students, caregivers, and educators. Taking away community voices and concentrating control makes it even harder to hold anyone accountable for the harms being done in our schools. It's part of a broader move toward privatization that treats education as a business, not a public good. If we are serious about creating schools where every student can thrive, then we must divest from systems of harm and reinvest in systems of care. We must build environments where safety is not something enforced, but something we create together. The message this morning is simple. Our children deserve better than fear disguised as safety. They deserve care, they deserve connection, and they deserve the chance to flourish. Thank you.
Fund our schools, fund our communities, not policing in schools. This government already knows what the answer is. This government already knows what the solution is. Address the chronically underfunded education system and the decimation of our community-based supports and the decimation of our public common goods. fund our schools, fund our communities, not policing in schools. We are now moving over onto the question and answer segment in case if reporters and news media would like to ask questions now. However, there will be an opportunity for reporters to also speak with speakers on a one-on-one. Yeah, just because it's on the live stream. Just for accessibility for folks. Listen, thank you.
I think Breck Lover from the Barrie Advance. I think my question would probably go towards Sarah. What kind of concrete plans do you have if Bill 33 passes? You got to step up to the mic too. If I had to do it.
Right, of course. Great question. We're still in the planning phases, so I'm a little bit reluctant, but definitely making sure parents are equipped with what their rights are will be top of mind, and making sure our children know how to protect themselves when in schools, and what surveillance means and what it can look like for them. I would say would be the themes around how we're going to prepare parents, but we're still in the works on what that's going to look like.
And just a quick follow-up question for anybody who chooses to answer. You did mention the Minister of Education, inviting him out to speak. I think you would as well. Have you talked to the local MPPs? Did you invite them to this today? Have you been in contact with them at all? What are they saying to you?
We have been in contact with the local MPPs in the past and had very robust conversations about our work, not necessarily with reference to Bill 33, but that doesn't mean it won't take place in the near future.
Thank you.
In regards to Bill 33, the Ontario New Democratic Party has reconfirmed with us that they will be opposing this bill, and they have already confirmed that, as well as the Ontario Green Party. They will be opposing Bill 33, and so those are confirmations from the NDP and Green Party. And so everyone, thank you again for joining today's Provincial Campaign Tour press conference, which is co-hosted by Policing Free Schools and local-based partners UPlift Black and Parents Against Racism Simcoe County has concluded. Once again, thank you to the speakers, to media who participated, as well thank you to community members who joined us today in solidarity. Let us continue to mobilize and organize against Bill 33. The Provincial Campaign for Policing Free Schools Ontario existed prior to Bill 33. And regardless of what happens with Bill 33, the provincial campaign continues and will continue to get stronger across the province. Thank you to DJ Curate, who continue to be on the ones and twos, mixing anthems for us. And reminder to those who have joined us, are encouraged, please do come by our learning booth. We have multiple ways that folks are able to get involved, both locally but as well as with the provincial campaign. Again, sign both of the provincial campaign petitions. They will be retabled later in October once the legislature resumes. Check out multiple calls to action on our website, policingfreeschools.ca. Click on the Ontario Take Action Now tab. Pick up Know Your Rights resources. As well, we have 4 more stops to conclude our 10 campaign local stops across the province, and it will be concluding on the 20th of October once the legislature resumes. And again, please read the solidarity statements from our partners from across different international spaces and pick up a lush gift set on your way out. And thank you again. Fund our schools, fund our communities, not policing in schools.